Good afternoon, 819S. It's another nice day. It's 23 degrees out today. And I went back to the old mic. It dried out and it seems to be working, but I think I'm going to buy a new one. And today, it's my day off, so I'm just out for a ride. Today, the topic is how to get your driver's license in Japan. So, it's a question that I think a lot of people search for. The question, I believe, is specifically how to get your motorcycle license in Japan. So that's what I'm going to mainly focus on. There are three ways you can get a car or motorcycle license in Japan. The first way is the standard. It's the most popular and it's the most common. The best way or easiest way is to go to driving school. Driving school's really expensive. It's going to be a few thousand US dollars, a few 100,000 Japanese yen. Depending on what license you have and what skill level you have and where you live, it's actually pretty expensive to do, but it's the easiest route to do it. They give you a lot of training and feedback. No, it's good. If you already have a driver's license in a foreign country, then another way that you can do it is Gaikoku Menkyo Kirikai, which means to convert your foreign license into a Japanese license. That way is also pretty popular. Some countries are easier than others. For example, when I went in to get my license converted, I may have told this story before, but a Canadian guy walked in at the same day as me. We had a nice chat. At the end of our visit there, he walked out with his new license in hand for car and motorcycle. I went in there as an American to convert my license. I left with a reservation to take the driving test. I had finished the paper test already that day. It's just a 10-question test. Wow, awesome. It's just a 10-question test. And yeah, I had an appointment to go in for the regular test, the full test. So I think now maybe 8 states or 9 states in the United States can convert their license on the same day with no tests. It's definitely changing. Just a little background, some people might want to know why. I think that Canada has a national driver's license, so the negotiation between Canada and Japan to get your license is a little bit easier. You're just converting a national license to a national license. But in the States, we have 50 states, which all have 50 different regulations and rules. Therefore, the negotiation for an American would have to be on a state-by-state basis to make sure that the regulations for that license meet the criteria that Japan is looking for. Which I think is logical and sensible, but is also a little frustrating. Because if you're from America and you want to convert your license and you're not from one of those states, that means you have to go through a fairly intense process. There's a gutter here and I don't want to fall in it. Yeah. All right. Yeah, so that's second option, and then the third option is called Ippatsu Shiken. Ippatsu Shiken means going directly to the driving test center without taking any driving school lessons or classes. And that one also has some benefits and drawbacks. So let's talk about it a little bit more. As I said, the main way is to get your license at a driving school. Driving school is a few $1,000s, and then depending on where you live, has a few different types of courses available. There's one that's called Gakka Shiken. Gakushu. Gakushu Shiken? I don't remember, but it's basically training camp. You go usually for 2 weeks, and it's a really intense course. I believe there's a dormitory, so you stay there, and every day wake up, classroom training, driving training, go to bed. Wake up, classroom training, driving training, go to bed, something like that. It's a popular thing for people who want to get their license in the shortest amount of time. But from what I understand, it's also a little bit more expensive. Regular driving school is usually a several-month process. depending on your schedule and how often you intend to take lessons. And they do basically everything for you. They give you classroom lecture training, they give you skills training, and they help you get your license. So I want to... Oh no, that was where I planned to go. One thing to consider too is getting a car license versus getting a motorcycle license. So car licenses have something called a... oh my gosh, I talked about it earlier today with my wife, and now my mind is blanking. Kari Menkyo. Kari Menkyo is a learner's permit or a temporary license. The Kari Menkyo can be used to drive on public roads with a driving instructor or someone who has had their license for a specified period of time. When you get a car license, you can use the Kari Menkyo to practice. But if you're getting a bike license, there is no Kari Menkyo for motorcycles. Therefore, to get your motorcycle license, the only place that you can legally practice is in a driving school, an official or an unofficial driving school. And then I'll get to that a little bit more later. So even if you don't choose the driving school option, you will be required to go to a driving school. When you get your car license, they tell you the amount of time that you need to practice, and then every time you drive, you have to keep a record, write down the name of the driver, the car license plate, the person that you were with, driver's license number, their category of license, and so on and so on. There's a lot of documentation, and if you don't meet the right number of hours of driving practice, they actually just won't let you take the test. If you go in and you are like 5 hours insufficient, they'll just be like, yeah, reschedule it and come back another day when you have enough time. So that's a little stressful. When you do it at driving school, all of that is done for you. It's all taken care of. So they will make sure that you have the right number of hours, that you have the right classroom training, the right knowledge. With a bike, you can practice in the driving school's course. And with a car, you end up driving in the course until you get comfortable driving a car, and then you go out onto the public roads and you can practice driving there. It's also interesting, from my understanding, when you're in the UK or in England and you're getting your driver's license, they put an L mark on your car to show that you have a learner's permit and that you're not a fully licensed driver yet. Here, there's a square or sort of rectangular sign that shows that you are you have a learner's permit. You're not a fully licensed driver yet, and that basically it's a sign to let other drivers know, hey, this person might not make the best decisions when they're driving, or be a little bit more gentle or a little bit more kind around this person, right? Yeah, it's nice. So going on to Ippatsu, that's the other option if you're not converting a license. Ippatsu means that you get your license without going to driving school. There is a paper exam still, even if you're changing your level of license. So you have to take the paper exam first, then you have to go to a driving school or an official or unofficial driving school, but you have to go someplace where they can stamp and give you practice and verify the number of hours that you've done. On the phone, when I talked to the driving test center to ask about upgrading my wife's license from Genski to Koogata, he said 12 hours is required. So she would have to go to a place and do 12 hours of practice minimum. Yeah. That one is a little stressful, I guess. After you do those 12 hours, you can take the official test, the driving test. Not every driving test center does all the bike license, I think. So you have to call around. was possible that my wife and I just made a mistake, but the lady on the phone was like, yeah, we don't do Ipatsu motorcycle licenses here. So again, you might have to make a few phone calls and find out what's going to work for you. Yeah. Then when you do, when you convert your driver's license, there's also no place for you to practice. So you can go to one of the official or unofficial places and just do a little bit of practice. It wasn't required, at least in my case it wasn't required. I did the paper test, I made my appointment. I did some unofficial practice, which I won't really talk about here. And then I went in for my test and I passed on the first try. The disadvantage of doing Ipatsu is that the fail rate is really, really, really high. This place is always wild to me. Somebody just threw out some cars back here and refrigerators, and there's a big sign that says no dumping, violators will be prosecuted, but somebody just dumped 3 whole cars here. Wild. And they've been here for a few years that I know of, probably 8 years or so. The disadvantage of converting your license is also that the fail rate is pretty high. The advantage is you don't really need to go to driving school, officially or unofficially. You just go in and you take the tests, and then if you pass, you pass. When you do convert your license, the steps are a little bit complicated, but if you figure them out, a lot of things in Japan tend to be a little bit complicated, but if you figure them out, it's not so bad. I don't remember how to get out of here. Maybe this way? Okay. If you learn the steps and follow them, it's really not too bad. Just kind of make sure you follow everything carefully, because Japan tends to be very strict about how rules are followed and how things are done. Yeah, but as far as I understand, or as far as I remember off the top of my head, you need to get a translation of your license at a JAF office, and then after you have the translation of your license at the JAF office, you go into the driving test center, and then you give them that and then fill out some paperwork. They're going to ask you some questions about your length of time having your license, and if you have any documentation to show how long you've actually had your license. Woo! Slippery! And that's important because if you've had your license for over a certain amount of time, again, I don't remember off the top of my head, but then you don't need to worry about using the highway or riding with a passenger. But if you've only had your license for a limited time, 1, you can't get it. 2, you can't ride with a passenger and you can't ride on the highway for 1 year in Japan. Gonna have to double check the numbers on that. And then after that, if you pass the paper test, they'll allow you to sign up for the driving test section. The driving test section I kind of covered in my long video, and as far as I know, the procedures haven't really changed from the time that I made that video to now. Man, this place is a little bit more overgrown than it was last time. I haven't been here for probably 1.5 years or 2 years, but it feels more overgrown now. This is one place where I crashed the bike when I first got it too, when I first bought my bike. This road can be super slippery. Yeah, and then for the driving test, they will warn you that you probably won't pass the first time. You probably won't pass the second time, depending on your skill level and your understanding of the rules and the driving system in Japan. It's pretty complicated. My understanding is people usually fail several times. So Ipatsu definitely has that drawback. If you go to driving school, I believe you keep practicing and keep taking the tests until you get your license, which makes it a lot easier. And then when it comes to licensing, there's also something to know. The types of licenses you can get, and again, this gets really complicated. But if to keep it most basic, there are 4 levels of licenses. There is Genski, which is 50cc. There's Kogata, which is 125cc. There's Chugata or Futsu, which is 400cc, and there's Ogata, which is unlimited. Those are the main 4. Genski, I believe there's only one type. There's just Genski. For Kogata, Chugata, and Ogata, there are automatic and manual. So if you don't want to use a clutch, you can get an automatic license, but that limits you to any bike you ride is limited to not have a clutch. So if you got a automatic Kogata license, you can ride a scooter, but you can't ride a Grom. If you get the manual license, you can ride both manual and automatic for all the classes. And there are big scooters that get up to 400, I think even 700 cc's. So you can get an Ogata license manual and still never have to ride a bike with a clutch. So I think that's pretty interesting. Yeah. The final thing about Ippatsu, basically Genski's, the 50cc bike, will be Ippatsu. You can go to the bookstore, buy a book that gives you a list of all of the driving rules and safe driving techniques and procedures in Japan. And then from there, study. There usually are some practice tests built into each of the books with questions. The questions typically have an answer to explain why they're right or why they're wrong. So you can understand how to pass the test and how to take it correctly. I believe it's a 50 question test, and maybe 70% pass. 70% is the passing score. Again, don't quote me on that one, but I think it's not too difficult. My wife passed that one on the first try, and then if you do pass your Genski license test on the first try, after that they walk you through like a safety course, because I think that's usually what 16-year-olds do. 16-year-olds, 17, 18-year-olds will get a 50cc license, and that means they have no experience at all. And therefore, the police want to make sure that they're not driving on the street for the first time with zero practice. My wife's course, I think, was 30 minutes or 1 hour, something like that. So it wasn't really intensive practice, but they did walk her through the basics of how to start the bike, wearing a helmet, how to stop, what to do in the case of an accident, maybe a quick ride through the course. Yeah, she really enjoyed it because that was on an electric bike, and she liked it better than gasoline-powered bikes because there's no noise and no smell. Driving schools I think will be able to help you with the Genski, but I think the majority of people absolutely do not need it. This is a driving school right here. And if you wait around this area, you can find cars that have a Karimen Renshuchu written on the back of the car. And you can tell that those are drivers who are learning to get their license. This driving school does every class as far as I understand. They do cars, bikes, big trucks, buses, stuff like that, passenger vehicles, taxis. Tokyu is a major, huge company in Japan. You can probably do your practice riding here for a motorcycle license. Also, you're going to have to call each individual school because whether they allow you to just do practice without lessons or not will vary from place to place, and the cost will vary from place to place. I believe one of my friends used a school like that to help her get her Ogata license. And I think it's cheaper if you bring your own bike. So if you have somebody go there with you and they have the bike, and you're basically just renting out time on the course, and the person will verify that you were there for a set amount of time. Yeah, I haven't had to deal with that yet. I would like my wife to get her 125 license so that we can step up the bikes that we ride to bigger bikes. There's a truck for truck driving practice. There's a lot of cars. Can't really see too much from here, I guess. And then on this side is where they have their motorcycle course. This is a driving area. And then this side is their motorcycle course. You can see some Genskis up there. Yeah, you can't see anything from here, unfortunately. But maybe if I do a quick UE right here. Yeah, there's some motorcycles back there. There's a simulated train crossing. They have some traffic signals, and there's a whole course. Yeah, I can go into a little bit more detail about a specific technique if anyone is interested, so please let me know. Are you interested in driving school more? Are you interested? Oh, if you are, I believe, what are their names? Ari and Kaito? I'll try to leave a link here, but they did a really, really great video. They're a couple that does moto vlogging in Japan. They went through a driving school and showed you the Ipponbashi, the crank turn, the S-curve, stuff like that, and the challenges that they faced. Popular video and really, really well done. So yeah, I'll try to leave a link to that video. Yeah, and if you want to know more about the Ippatsu test, I'll do a little bit more research and I can talk about that more. And the converting a foreign license, I already have a video about that, and to the best of my knowledge, everything is basically the same. The prices may have changed slightly. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Ride safe.